Knowledge management. Perceptions on knowledge. In everyday language, we use knowledge to refer to information. Defining knowledge is further complicated by how data and information are understood. The two terms are often regarded as lower values of knowledge. Information systems treat knowledge as information that an organization can use to make decisions, information that has a purpose. In many organizations, KM systems are mainly information management systems. Therefore, they use knowledge to mean useful information. However, knowledge definitions increasingly recognize that knowledge is a more complex concept that incorporates more than just information. The Longman Online Dictionary has one definition that begins to approach how knowledge is considered within KM. It states, the information, skills, and understanding that you have gained through learning or experience. KM is seen in a broader aspect than just being useful information. What are data, information, and knowledge? Data. Facts and figures that convey something specific, but are not organized and do not provide further information regarding patterns, context, etc. Defined data as unstructured facts and figures that have the least impact on the typical manager. Information. Data become information once it has been contextualized, categorized, calculated and condensed. It is data with relevance and purpose. For example, it may convey a pattern in the environment or indicate a sales trend for a given period. Essentially, information is found in answers to questions that begin with such words as who, what, where, when, and how many. IT is exceptional in turning data into information, particularly in big organizations that generate large amounts of data across many departments and functions. However, human beings are needed to assist in contextualization. Knowledge. Knowledge is closely linked to doing and implies know-how and understanding. The knowledge possessed by each individual is unique, a product of his experience, and encompasses the norms by which they evaluate new inputs from their surroundings. Gamble and Blackwell defined it as follows. Knowledge is a fluid mix of framed experience, values, contextual information, expert insight, and grounded intuition that provides an environment and framework for evaluating and incorporating new experiences and information. It originates and is applied in the mind of the knowers. In organizations, it often becomes embedded in documents or repositories and organizational routines, practices and norms. We, therefore, need a deep understanding of what KM is for it to succeed. The different types of knowledge. Understanding the different forms that knowledge can exist in, and distinguishing between various types of knowledge, is essential for knowledge management. For example, the knowledge captured in a document can be managed by being stored, retrieved, shared, changed, etc. However, that is different from how knowledge gathered over the years by an expert craftsman can be managed. Two types of knowledge are usually defined: explicit and tacit knowledge. Explicit knowledge is codified knowledge found in documents, while tacit knowledge refers to non-codified and often personal, experience-based knowledge. Bota et al. 2008 make an important point that tacit and explicit knowledge should be seen as a spectrum rather than definitive points. Therefore, in practice, all knowledge combines tacit and explicit elements rather than one or another. Some researchers have introduced a further distinction and talk of embedded knowledge. This way, one differentiates between knowledge embodied in people and embedded in processes, organizational culture, routines, etc. However, the most crucial distinction within KM is between explicit and tacit knowledge. Explicit knowledge. Explicit knowledge is formalized and codified, sometimes known as know-what. It is reasonably easy to identify, store, and retrieve. This type of knowledge is most easily handled by a knowledge management system, which effectively facilitates the storage, retrieval, and modification of documents and texts. From a managerial perspective, the most significant challenge with explicit knowledge is similar to that of information, ensuring that people have access to what they require, that important knowledge is stored, and that knowledge is examined, updated, or deleted as necessary. Many theorists believe that explicit knowledge is less important. It is thought to be more straightforward, but it lacks the depth of experience-based know-how that can provide a long-term competitive edge. Although this is changing to some limited degree, KM initiatives driven by technology have often had the flaw of focusing almost exclusively on managing explicit knowledge. This has created many products labeled as KM systems, which are nothing more than information and explicit knowledge management software. Explicit knowledge is found in databases, memos, notes, documents, and so on. Tacit knowledge. This type of knowledge is known as know-how and refers to intuitive, hard to define, mainly experience-based knowledge. Because of this, tacit knowledge is often context-dependent and personal. As a result, it is hard to communicate and deeply rooted in action, commitment, and involvement. Tacit knowledge is regarded as the most valuable source of knowledge and the most likely to lead to innovations in the organization. KMS have a tough time handling this type of knowledge. This is because an IT system relies on codification, which is difficult or impossible for the tacit knowledge holder. Imagine attempting to write an article that effectively explains how to understand body language. It should be evident that expressing our intuitive understanding from years of experience and practice would be practically difficult. Nonetheless, almost all practitioners rely on this type of information. An IT expert, for example, will diagnose a problem using his instincts and expertise. It would be difficult for him to put his expertise into a paper that a novice could easily understand. This is why experience in a specific industry is highly valued in the employment market. IT systems cannot effectively or efficiently contribute to transferring and enhancing tacit knowledge because it is not codified. We must focus on the people and processes involved while applying technology as support. Tacit knowledge is in the minds of human stakeholders. It includes cultural beliefs, values, attitudes, mental models, skills, capabilities, and expertise. Embedded knowledge. Processes, products, culture, procedures, artifacts, and structures include embedded knowledge. Knowledge is embedded either formally through a management initiative to formalize a particular useful routine or informally through the organization's tacit and explicit knowledge application. The challenges of managing embedded knowledge differ significantly from those of managing embodied tacit knowledge. Culture and routines, for example, can be complicated to understand and change. On the other hand, formalized methods may be easier to implement, and management can actively aim to incorporate the results of lessons learned into procedures, routines, and products. IT can map organizational knowledge areas in reverse engineering of products or as a supporting mechanism for processes and cultures. However, it has been argued that IT might have a negative impact on culture and processes, especially if implemented incorrectly. Firms that succeed may have a significant competitive advantage due to the difficulties of efficiently managing embedded knowledge. Embedded knowledge is found in rules, processes, manuals, organizational culture, codes of conduct, ethics, products, etc. However, it is essential to note that while embedded knowledge can exist in explicit sources, it is not explicit. Therefore, it is not immediately apparent why doing something in a particular way is beneficial to the organization. What is knowledge management? Knowledge management is about making the right knowledge available to the right people. It is about making sure that an organization can learn and that it will be able to retrieve and use its knowledge assets in current applications as they are needed. Peter Drucker explained it as the coordination and exploitation of organizational knowledge resources to create benefit and competitive advantage. The disagreement sometimes occurs in conjunction with the creation of new knowledge. Wellman limits the scope of knowledge management to lessons learned and the techniques employed to manage what is already known. He argues that knowledge creation is often perceived as a separate discipline and generally falls under innovation management. Davenport and Prusik state that knowledge management is managing the corporation's knowledge through a systematically and organizationally specified process for acquiring, organizing, sustaining, applying, sharing and renewing both the tacit and explicit knowledge of employees to enhance organizational performance and create value. Knowledge management is the systematic management of an organization's knowledge assets to create value and meet tactical and strategic requirements. It consists of the initiatives, processes, strategies, and systems that sustain and enhance the storage, assessment, sharing, refinement, and creation of knowledge. Therefore, there is a strong tie between knowledge management to organizational goals and strategy. It involves the management of useful knowledge that serves some purpose and creates value for the organization. Knowledge management involves the understanding of where and in what forms does knowledge exist, what the organization needs to know, how to promote a culture conducive to learning, sharing, and knowledge creation, how to make the right knowledge available to the right people at the right time, how to best generate or acquire new relevant knowledge. How to manage all of these factors to enhance performance in light of the organization's strategic goals and short-term opportunities and threats. Knowledge management must create or provide the right tools, people, knowledge, structures, culture, and so on to increase learning. Understand the value and applications of the new knowledge created. Store this knowledge and make it readily available for the right people at the right time. Continuously assess, apply, refine, and remove organizational knowledge in conjunction with concrete long- and short-term factors. This shows that knowledge management depends upon the management of the organization's knowledge creation and conversion mechanisms, organizational memory and retrieval facilities, organizational learning, corporate culture. Why is knowledge management useful? Knowledge management is responsible for understanding what your organization knows, the location of the knowledge, For example, in the mind of a specific expert, a specific department, in old files, with a particular team, etc. In what form this knowledge is stored, for example the minds of experts, on paper, etc. How to best share this knowledge with relevant people to use it or ensure that it is not lost. For example, setting up a mentoring relationship between experienced experts and new employees and implementing a document management system to provide access to key explicit knowledge. The need to methodically assess the organization's actual know-how versus the organization's needs and act accordingly, for example by hiring or firing, promoting specific in-house knowledge creation, and so on. So, how can knowledge benefit management? For starters, it is beneficial since it emphasizes knowledge as an asset rather than just something that is intangible. It allows the company to better safeguard and use its knowledge and strengthen and focus its knowledge development activities to meet its needs. In other words, it helps firms learn from past mistakes and successes. It better uses existing knowledge assets by redeploying them in areas where the firm stands to gain something, for example, leveraging knowledge from one department to improve or produce a product in another department, modifying knowledge from a previous process to generate a new solution, and so on. It encourages a long-term focus on acquiring the necessary abilities and skills, as well as the elimination of outdated knowledge. It boosts the company's ability to innovate. It improves the firm's ability to guard against the loss or copying of key knowledge and competencies. Unfortunately, knowledge management is an area where companies are often reluctant to invest because it can be expensive to implement correctly, and it is challenging to determine a specific return on investment. Many individuals use the terms knowledge and information interchangeably. As a result, many KM solutions today are merely information or document management systems, that is, they handle data, information, or even explicit knowledge but ignore the most important aspect of knowledge management, tacit knowledge. So, what's the difference between the two? Information and information management focuses on data and information, deals with unstructured and structured facts and figures, benefits greatly from technology since the information being conveyed is already codified and in an easily transferable form, focuses on organizing, analyzing, and retrieving, again due to the codified nature of the information. It is mainly about know what, i.e., it offers facts that you can then use to help create useful knowledge, but in itself, the facts do not convey a course of action. For example, sales of product X are up 25% last quarter. It is easy to copy, due to its codified and easily transferable nature. Knowledge and knowledge management focuses on knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. Deals with both codified and uncodified knowledge. Uncodified knowledge, the most valuable type of knowledge, is found in the minds of practitioners and is unarticulated, context-based, and experience-based. Technology is beneficial, but knowledge management focuses on people and processes. IT is excellent for transmitting clear, codified knowledge, but it's more complicated when sharing deeper, internalized knowledge. Tacit knowledge is transferred from person to person by conversation, cooperation, mentoring, and other methods, particularly in an unstructured setting. IT serves as an instrument to bring people together, improve communication, and allow the storing and sharing of unstructured thoughts and notes, among other things. Focuses on locating, understanding, enabling, and encouraging, by creating environments, cultures, processes, etc. Where knowledge is shared and created. It is mainly about know-how, know-why, and know-who. Tacit knowledge is exceedingly difficult to reproduce because of its relationship to experience and context. Some things, the most important ones, are impossible to teach through a textbook or other codified sources of explicit knowledge. These are learned on the job and are intuitively understood. Without the correct experience, context, and other factors, you won't be able to reproduce or even comprehend this intuition readily. This intuition is the most important piece of organizational knowledge.